Coming to you from deep within the heart of Texas in our secret underground bunkers, it's the New Republic Radio Show. Welcome to the weekend edition of the New Republic. On this fine autumn day, we're going to be bringing you a great show today. But first, I want to talk about our current contest that's going on. We're trying to get more YouTube, not necessarily viewers. Obviously, we always want viewers, but subscribers. So, after we hit 50 subscribers, we're going to be giving away a very nice set of Sennheiser headphones. And as most of you know by now, Sennheiser makes some of the best headphones on the planet, period, at any price range. So, with that said, like I say, just either put me on pause or keep listening and select subscribe. A lot of our other pages are doing much better on subscriptions, but this our YouTube page needs a little love. So help us out there, and hopefully you'll win a $50 pair of headphones. All right. Well, to tease a little bit of the news of what we're going to be talking about, I want to first and foremost say, for some of you, you may not like this show. This is going to be a very history heavy show, so there's a lot of learning. So you might not, if this show might not be for you, you may want to go ahead and stop listening now. But for others, hey, you might be interested. And of course, we have all types of different shows, but we're all about learning and educating each other and educating ourselves here at the New Republic. So that's what this show is all about. All right, some of the things we're going to be talking about in the news is preaching politics. A lot of folks, pastors are planning to challenge the 1954 Tax Code Amendment. So we're going to have more information on that. We're also going to have some information on In God We Trust and our money. A little bit of an in-depth analysis on that. Also, we're going to be talking about some of the liberal nonsense coming out in our liberal nonsense section. We're going to be talking about some of the stuff, for instance, some of the reports about Romney's Univision appearance. And also, one of the other main things that are in the news is going to be talking about how Romney overpaid his taxes and what everybody's saying about that, or at least what the liberal media is saying about it. Anyway, we'll go ahead and kick this show off talking about preaching politics. Fox News has a report that a group of more than 1,000 pastors are planning to challenge a 1954 tax code amendment that prohibits tax-exempt organizations, such as churches, from making political endorsements. Now, I have a lot of opinions on this, and I'll be honest, most of them have changed in let's just say the past 10 years. I used to be real big on the separation of church and state in every aspect. But this particular issue, number one, I just don't think it really fits into that whole idea of separation of church and state. And a lot of you will ask me why that is, and I understand that a lot of you will hate this idea of these 1,000 pastors endorsing political parties and or people. Because a lot of you feel that, well, they have an unfair advantage, that they basically have a bully pulpit, which, to an extent, yes, a bully pulpit is the premium pulpit. It's the best pulpit to work from. Excuse me. But I want to bring up a whole nother aspect of this, and it's just the fact that, in 1954, there was a lot of situations, a lot of things going on that religion, churches, and government kind of mixed in and got mixed up with. And this rule was basically proposed to keep those type of things from, making, I guess, a big fire out of a smaller situation. But there was a lot of situations. I mean, we had civil rights starting to really kick off. We had the whole thing of for example, when, now this was a little later, but when JFK took office, he was a Catholic, so that was a huge problem for a lot of Americans. And so there are places that you could say, hey, look, this makes sense why you have this separation. But one dynamic that has completely changed since then is the simple fact, and this is the reason why I've changed my mind on this, but it's the simple fact that the government has completely changed their stance. Now they are making decisions, they are making laws, rules that affect churches directly. Things such as like healthcare, where many churches they're basically trying to force them to cover things like abortions and birth control, things that go against certain churches and a lot of churches' doctrine and their beliefs, as well as so many other ways that the government is interjecting themselves into religion. And this is where this really changed my mind. In 1954, to my knowledge, the government was not putting its nose in so many things about the church and their organizations. But in 2012, that just can't be said. In so many ways, the government is making changes and doing things that go against what people of faith believe, feel, and in the way that they live their lives. So here's my whole argument. If the government is going to forcibly change and make these changes, or let's even argue that the churches and the people that belong to them, and even the people that don't belong to them but that support their religious freedom, maybe they have fought to change these things and to make sure that these things don't take effect. But here's the simple fact. It's just the act that you tried to do it in the first place. Okay? That is the worrying situation. Okay? Now that they're doing these things, they're actually taking political steps to interfere with churches. This is where this changes my mind. And I have to say that if the government is going to interfere with churches, then at that point, churches need to have the ability to fight back. And one of the major ways that they can fight back is by educating their flock, educating their members, and letting them know about the things that these political organizations, be it parties and or office holders, are doing against them. Now, I know that this just ruffles a lot of you folks' feathers out there, because you just, you have problems with people that go to church, and that's whatever. It is a free country. You can have those feelings. But the simple fact is if there were people from Congress and people from our government trying to inhibit your ability to be an atheist, or your ability to just not go to church for whatever reason, I think you would want more ability and the ability to get together with people that are like-minded like you and do something about it, to organize, to fight back. And here's the simple fact is, if they did come up with a rule like that, I would be one of the first people to be on your side and to fight alongside with you, to get the government out of your beliefs. Now, sadly, that doesn't really seem to be the place at this particular moment. So I feel that it is our only mode of operation that we can do is to organize against it through our own folks. So allowing these preachers, and I understand that they're bringing it up as a First Amendment, and I agree with that too. But to me, it's even a step further. It's not just the First Amendment of those pastors to be able to say whatever they want to say, as long as it's not hate speech. And I mean true hate speech, not the adjusted hate hate speech rules which we have today, which this is that's a whole nother segment of this argument. For instance, and what I'm talking about, some of you that don't know, is, for instance, if your congregation believes that homosexuality is a sin, then, for instance, in Canada, you cannot preach that because it's considered hate speech. Even though the Bible has a passage that talks about homosexuality as a sin that doesn't even cover you in Canada. You just can't talk about it. And that is part of this whole situation. Number one, it's free speech. Number two, it's one of your beliefs. It's part of your religion. But the government in Canada, and I'm not saying that yet, but here's the question: does everybody out there listening, do you really believe that won't be one of the steps eventually down this horrible road? You don't think that one day, 10 years, 50 years, 100 years from now, that the United States government, if they keep going the direction that they're going, you don't believe that saying something like homosexuality is a sin, you don't think that could be construed as hate speech eventually? And that's part of this. That's the reason why I agree and I believe that these pastors are right. Number one, it's free speech. Why should the First Amendment not apply to pastors? Number two, if the government is going to stick its nose in churches' business and effectively their politics, why do the pastors not have the ability to fight that? Even if we're not just talking about the pastors, the members of the church, why can't they step up and talk about this without losing their tax-free exemption? And here goes to the other end. Simple fact. What they're wanting to do is they want to do this and get the IRS to basically take them to court and forcibly remove their tax-free status. Because they feel that if this was taken to a higher court, that it would be thrown out because ultimately the First Amendment would protect them. And I do agree with that. And I think that's what would ultimately happen. And I think overall the American populace would support them because ultimately it is freedom of speech. But here's number two part. For all those folks out there that just hate everything about church, you hate the fact that people donate money to you. They hate the fact that you have tax-free exemptions. They hate just all the ideas of that because for some reason in their head, churches somehow just keep all this money. They sit on it. They do absolutely no good in the world. They don't help a single person. That's just in their imagination or whatever, and that's fine. You can believe that. That's great. But those folks would love to see the tax-exempt status of churches taken away. But here's my whole thing. If that is what it takes to free the churches to do what they need to do to protect themselves, then you know what? I'm for it. And if my church decided to say, hey, we don't care about the tax-free, tax-exempt status, we're just going to do what the right thing is to do, then I would support it. I would rather the churches pay taxes, even though I think that would be stupid. But I would rather them pay taxes and be able to fight the government and do good ultimately than to save 20, 30, 40, 50%, whatever their tax status is, of money. Yeah, it would make a lot of things hard. A lot of churches would probably close, and a ton of programs, a lot of needy people would go without. And I don't, it's not that I don't doubt that, and I think that would be horrible. But I think ultimately the ability to worship and practice your faith unmolested by the government is more important than what portion or how much dollars you're able to send out into the community and into the world. Yes, I agree that we need to send as much money and as much dollars into the community, into the world as possible. But if that means losing our tax-exempt status, then I'm all for it. So, That's kind of a big subject, and I know a lot of you won't agree with me, but that's all right. That's what America's about. That's what this show is about. I don't want people that, listening to my show that just agree with me blindly. I want you to argue with me about things. I want you to look at things from a different perspective, and I want to look at things from your perspective. So, yeah. That is my feelings on that whole deal, and so this will be interesting to see how this plays out. If you have any comments, give me a call, 979-31-TALK-6. If you have just some ideas or whatever, write them down, send them to me. Give me a call me on the phone, whatever. Anyway, moving on. Now, this next story is kind of related just because it happens to be a similar subject. Well, the other day I was going through some coins. I was searching through, just making sure and seeing which ones were valuable and which ones weren't. The different values on different coins and such like that. Well, one thing, and I'll be honest, I had to do a little research myself on this. But I happened to notice that I believe it was a penny that I was looking at. It was from like 1912. But that penny had "In God We Trust." And that kind of struck me as curious only because I've not lived forever, so I've always heard that in the 1950s was when we put "In God We Trust" on our money. So, of course, when Keith doesn't know something, he's going to go to no end to find out what is going on with that subject, to answer that question, to find the ultimate truth. That's just, I don't know, my brain has a failing there. When I find something I don't know about, I have to learn as much about the subject as possible. So, I was curious. I was like, what's going on here, man? I've always been told, I've always heard in the media that, it was Eisenhower that put "In God We Trust" on the money, and that we've only been doing this for a short time, and we should be taking it off the money, and blah, 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 blah. The whole 9 yards that the liberal media gives you. So, I did a whole bunch of research, but the funny part is I found this from the actual U.S. Mint's website. I ended up getting back to the U.S. Mint's website, and I found this to actually be very, very helpful. They probably had it laid out in the most understandable format. But I'm going to read you a little bit from their site just to kind of educate all of us and me, myself again. The motto, "In God We Trust," was placed on United States coins largely because of the increased religious sentiment existing during the Civil War. Secretary of Treasury Salmon P. Chase received many appeals from devout persons throughout the country, urging that the United States recognize the deity on United States coins. From Treasury Department records, it appears that the first such appeal came in a letter dated November 13, 1861. In December 1863, the director of the Mint submitted design for new 1-cent coin, 2-cent coin, and 3-cent coin to Secretary Chase for approval. He proposed that upon the design, either "Our Country, Our God," or "God, Our Trust" should appear as a motto on the coin. Later on, the Congress passed the Act of April 22, 1864. This legislation changed the composition of the 1-cent coin and authorized the minting of the 2-cent coin. The mint director was directed to develop the designs for the coins for final approval of the secretary. "In God We Trust" first appeared on the 1864 2-cent coin. Now again, this was just interesting to me because all of my life I have been given this idea that "In God We Trust" only appeared on our money in the 1950s, and that there's not much of a tradition that, that we've done or had or whatever. And, this just goes back to the whole idea of separation of church and state. That's the thought process that the left-wing media, our state-controlled schools, basically all of our lives that we've been fed. That's the line, is that there's always been separation of church and state. Our founders were either agnostic, atheists, or were very, very scared of any type of church involvement in government. That's basically been the motto that we've been forced to believe. And the funny part is, the motto, "In God We Trust," has been around so much longer than the motto of separation of church and state, and that, our original founders were atheists, agnostics, or, whatever crazy religion they want to try to put on them. But it's basically a 150-year tradition. Our country's been around 230 some odd years. So my whole point to this whole deal it's just a simple fact. It's a 150-year tradition, people. Get over it. I understand you may be an atheist. I understand you may be an agnostic. But I don't think agnostics really have a problem with it. I think ultimately it's just the atheists that have the issue with it. And my whole deal about that is, come on, look, you're 1.2% of the population of the United States. Why do you have to mess it up for everybody else? Basically 1 out of every 100 people that you see walking down the street are the people that have a problem with this. And my question is it really, does it really just ruin your day? Is that total? That "In God We Trust" on that coin, or on that dollar, is that really forcing you to believe in God? Is that forcing you to listen to religion? You can look at it just as much as I can look at a coin that doesn't have it on there, or a dollar that doesn't have it on there. It doesn't mean that, a coin without it is basically propagating atheism. No, it's not. A coin or a dollar without "In God We Trust" does not propagate or shove atheism down my throat any more than a coin or a dollar with "In God We Trust" thrust Christianity, Judaism, or whatever else down your throat. Okay? Please try to understand that. I don't know if all of you can, because unfortunately my big problem with atheists are the simple fact that you're very arrogant. The only way that you can believe in atheism is if you believe that you know everything in the universe, and you know that God is not in the universe. An agnostic, on the other hand, hey, I can understand. Agnostics, you guys realize you haven't seen everything in the universe. You guys, you realize that there's a limit to human understanding and knowledge. You're not so arrogant as atheists are that you completely rule out the ability. Human beings maybe have 1% of the knowledge of the universe out there. The universe is a big place. But atheists completely believe that even with that 1% of the knowledge of the universe, they believe that they have the supposition that they feel is correct, that even with that 1% of knowledge of the universe, that they can surmise that there is no God. So, I don't know, if you have that kind of outlook, maybe you can't understand what I was talking about with the coins with or without. I hope you can, because it's a pretty simple idea. But I don't know, again, like I say, unfortunately, a lot of atheists are very arrogant, and I don't mean to hurt your feelings if you're an atheist. I'm just trying to be real about it. And hey, hopefully maybe you'll reconsider yourself from an atheist to an agnostic, because you'll realize that, hey, you know, maybe I'm not really an atheist. Maybe I'm actually an agnostic, because I don't know the entire universe, and I can't intelligently make a supposition of that massive effect. You know, maybe you'll be intellectually honest and say, you know what, I really don't know. I don't know 100%, so I'm going to be honest and say that I'm an agnostic, not an atheist. But it's whatever. I got off on a whole nother rant there. But going back to the whole coin and dollar thing, it's a 150-year tradition. It's something that's probably not going to change. And if it does, it's only going to be able to be changed through the media's involvement and through the government education of us, which I was part of that, and of our children. But it's up to people like you and I to understand and to go around and let people know, hey, in God we trust, that's a 150-year tradition, just so you know. And you know what? I missed a very big point. Going back to my earlier subject, preaching politics, I missed a very big point, and I know it's going to sound weird coming out and talking about it now, but here's the simple fact. Without the ability to talk about politics in the church, we would have never had an American Revolution. Because you want to know where the American Revolution was fomented? It was fomented in the churches. And the other place, interestingly, was the bars. The bars and the church is what fomented the American Revolution. And let me tell you something. The government and the media and everybody else that has a stake in this has adjusted things that the bars don't work for that anymore. Why? Because this whole idea of talking politics, talking religion with friends is a bad thing. So people don't talk about that in the bars anymore. So you're not going to have people from one table talking to people at the other table saying, hey, you know, our government is out of hand. Da 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 da. It doesn't happen anymore. But if we brought this back in the churches, at least we would have at least one area where it was not taboo to talk about religion and politics. So I just want to leave y'all with that part there. Just think about it. If that rule, if that 1954 rule was in place during the American Revolution, you and I would still be basically part of the British Empire. So, you know, think about that. Anyway, moving on. Oh my gosh, this show is going way long. I'm sorry, folks. Liberal nonsense. I just wanted to bring up some stuff real fast. I saw a thing on Alan Combs' Liberal Land, his website. Did Romney overdo the bronzer for Univision appearance? Well, as many of you know, Obama and Romney appeared on the Spanish-speaking Univision channel. And I thought this was funny that they bring this up because, number one, who cares? Who cares if Romney fake bakes, if he puts on bronzer or whatever? Seriously, this is the political conversation that we're having? Okay, wow. You know, the average intelligence of an American has just dropped in the past 50 years. I can't even tell you. But number one, that's what they're talking about, and that's the big debate in the liberal camp is, did he overdo the bronzer for the Univision interview? The thing that's not being discussed in the liberal camps is the flip side of this interview, which was the Obama interview, in which I know many of you didn't get to see this, but if you can, go and watch or listen to the Univision interview with Obama. I have to hand it to those folks. They handed President Obama his behind so badly. The only media that has ever asked Obama hard questions. They asked him about Fast and Furious. They talked to him about the 60,000 deaths in Mexico that are part of this whole deal. They called him out on the fact, you know, why hasn't he fired Eric Holder. They called him out on a lot of different things. Oh, they also called him out on why he hasn't fulfilled his campaign promises. The other part that I thought was funny real quick is the reason he said that he didn't go through on his campaign promises. The excuse he gave, and of course you'll never hear this in American media, but the excuse he gave was he blamed the recession. And instead of this whole liberal idea of the recession began and started with Bush, he said himself, his own words, he said that after he was elected, the recession began, and he had to turn his focus from all these other things like the immigration stuff that they were concerned about, which is totally understandable. And he had to focus on the economy, which we all know he didn't lift a finger to help the economy. He just did the same old crap that everybody else was doing, which is bailing out, which helped nobody. But anyway, I just thought it was funny that Obama himself admitted that the recession started under his watch. So, well, plus the fact that Univision completely owned him. So definitely go check that out. Yeah, that was really good. That is what real reporting is. I wish all of the American media would look at that and understand what that actually is. That's real reporting, and that's how a president should be asked questions. Not be asked, oh, if you could have a superpower, what superpower would that be? Seriously? Anyway. And from everywhere else in the liberal world, Romney overpaid his taxes. That is the big subject right now. Romney overpaid his taxes. And of course, there's two things that they say about it. Number one, they say, well, he only overpaid because he was running for president and he wanted to look better because he pays such a small percentage. Number two, they talk about the fact that he had a quote where he was talking about nobody would want a president who paid too much taxes. Okay, well, the big thing about that is, and I'm not going to go into this because we just don't have enough time, and honestly I get sick of explaining this to liberals, but there's a reason why he only paid 13 or 14% in taxes. It's called capital gains tax. And for you folks that don't know what a capital gains tax is, I want you to look it up. It's a completely different tax than income tax, because Romney has not actually had a job in a while, and you don't get taxed nearly as high on capital gains because it's not a job. Okay, you've already paid tax on that money once, so they're not going to well, they used to try, but now they don't tax you to death so bad on capital gains. It's basically an investment tax. It's if you take money and you invest it into a business, into a stock, things like that. So anyway, learn the difference between capital gains and income tax. And I hope you liberals one day can do a little hard work, understand what capital gains tax, and use it to your advantage. I hope that happens one day. But who knows with some of these liberals. Anyway. The other aspect of that was the whole comment about, wouldn't be qualified if he overpaid his taxes. Okay, I don't know the reason why he overpaid his taxes. I don't really care. But here's my question. Why has this election come down to one side they're worried about if he overdoes his bronzer, and that he paid too much taxes? The other side, they're worried about the fact that he has horrible foreign policy, the Middle East is on fire, Japan and China are almost at war, the economy is completely failing, everybody's without a job. But that's what it's come down to. One side is so out of their mind, they're worried about the taxes that somebody who's running for office paid. I mean, that just blows me away. It also blows me away that the last election, Obama basically ran against Bush. He ran against a man who was not even in the race. And of course, when he got in office, he didn't do any of the stuff that he was asked, that he told, I'm sorry, he didn't do any of the stuff that he promised he would do. Again, going back to the Univision interview where they hit him with all those hard questions. So I just, as a third, I'm an independent, so I'm kind of I'm kind of like a third set of eyes out here, looking at the whole debate between Republicans and Democrats, and I just find it astounding that the race has basically come down to bronzer taxes that somebody paid versus a sitting president's track record. I mean, I don't even understand how that's even close to equal. But I guess, only in America. What are you going to say? Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I've gone too long. I hope you guys have been having a great Saturday. A lot of good football games going on today. Hope the folks that you're cheering for win. Anyway, as usual, go out, have a great day, spread some love around, spread some wealth around, donate something, donate some time, open a door for somebody, change a flat for somebody, pay for somebody's meal behind you in line. Just do something that will put a smile on somebody else's face. When you're interacting with folks, give them a smile, say something nice. If you're on the phone, just put up a good attitude, something that comes through the phone, and they can tell that you're just a great person, you're having a great day. Maybe it'll rub off. Maybe somebody's boss won't give them a hard time today because he just met a few too many people that were just in a great mood and it rubbed off on him. Or her. Anyway, like I say, just have a good one, spread the wealth, take care of your community because your community is going to take care of you. Other than that, I will be seeing you guys Monday. All right, have a great weekend. I'm your host, Keith, and I'm out.